I'm Mel.
And I'm Janelle.
And this is the Murder Mamas.
The Murder Mamas.
Welcome.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
Living the dream.
That's awesome.
Same as you.
Same as me.
Living the dream.
Just living the dream. All right, so tonight we are going to talk about Gary Allen Walker. And
what he do?
He's a murderer.
Most of them are.
Most of them are. This only took place, he was in trouble all of his life, but these specific murders only took place within a 19-day span.
Oh.
So it was just boom, 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 boom.
Does he get caught?
Yes. He's dead. He is now deceased. All right.
Tell me everything.
So the horrific 19-day spree, which claimed 5 lives in the Oklahoma area during the summer of 1984, began with the murder of Eddie Cash, a resident of Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was Eddie's misfortune to pick up Gary Allen Walker on May 7th. When Eddie came home and found Gary ransacking his home, there was a fight, and Gary opened Eddie's skull in 3 places with a chimney brick.
What?
To make sure Eddie was dead, Gary took the electrical cord from the vacuum cleaner and wrapped it around his throat.
Wow, you really came out the gate swinging.
I did. So Eddie just happened to be driving down the road, and Gary had his thumb out to do a hitchhiking, like, hey, can you pick me up? And he got him talking, and Eddie was like, oh, this is where I live, this is where I work, this is, yada, yada, yada. So Gary was like, well, fuck, he dropped me off, and I don't have any money, so I think I'm going to go back and rob that dude, because he told me where he lived. Like, what?
Wow.
Yeah. So there's one. When a curious neighbor didn't see Eddie around anymore, she called the police. Arriving officers found Eddie's motionless corpse at the scene of blood and chaos. The neighbors said Eddie's 1976 Dodge van was missing from its usual place in the driveway of his house. So they were on it right away.
Okay.
Like, he's missing, he hasn't been here, his house is gone, there's blood in the house, what's going on?
His car.
Yeah, his blood is gone.
His house is gone.
His blood is also gone. It's
no,
on the...
he said his house is gone.
His house is gone, okay.
His house just grew legs, walked away.
Bye-bye. So a systematic alert went out over the airways for Eddie's vehicle. Police canvass would uncover people in the neighborhood who saw and heard strange things that night, but failed to report on them. Maybe something could have been done a little bit faster if they would have contacted the police and said, hey, these strange noises are going off. Like, come on. Investigators immediately telephoned every person listed in Eddie's personal directory he kept by the phone. Do you remember when he used to do that?
A Rolodex?
A Rolodex, yeah. Did you? Oh, you probably didn't do that. I remember going through my dad's desk, and he had everything, circular thing, just thousands of them.
I remember my grandma had a Rolodex.
Yeah.
My mom had a Rolodex when I was really little. And then when I was working, we had a Rolodex.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was just for some numbers.
Right, old, yeah.
Well, the police department,
right.
But they're not emergency lines, just that kind of stuff where you didn't want to have to Google.
Sure.
And also I took my property over from a very wonderful, sweet older woman. So I inherited a Rolodex that I ended up using quite often.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Until the numbers changed and people changed their job and then numbers
it all goes.
Yeah.
Okay. No one that was contacted by the homicide men had the slightest idea who would want to kill Eddie. Nobody was... he's a really good guy.
Yeah, he didn't have an enemy.
No, not one. That night, shocked residents of Broken Arrow watched the late-night news on the television that mentioned the brutal killing of their neighbor. People began calling police headquarters. They wanted to know if a warped killer lived among them. So this is in, the 70s, and
a small town.
It's a small town in Oklahoma, so everybody knows what's going on.
Well, and probably that's not the only killer that lives among you, but it's
probably not. But the one you know
of
right now, yeah. So meanwhile, Gary drove Eddie's van to Heavener, these are places, I don't know if I'm saying them right, but
trying your best.
I'm trying my best. Keeping to all the back roads to avoid detection, he sold the van to a salvage yard, and with the lump of money in his pocket, Gary hit the nearest highway and stuck out his thumb once again. He was given a ride to Poteo by a man driving by. It was a long, lonely ride along Highway 24. And the motorist, unaware that his passenger was a raving lunatic, dropped him off at a roach trap hotel in Poteo. That night, he freshened up, Gary freshened up, and decided to spend a little money that he got for selling Eddie's van. The guy that dropped him off got lucky because he didn't get killed. And now Gary's like, okay, I'm going to spend some money. I'm going to go out and see what I can get.
Could you imagine
trouble
picking up a hitchhiker?
No, absolutely not. There's no fucking way. Mm-mm.
No way.
Mm-mm. And I could never hitchhike myself. Like, there's
absolutely not.
I've been in an Uber one time. I think I've been in a cab one time. Like, I don't do that by myself. I mean, like with other people, I've done it, but by myself, that's it. One time on Uber and one time, and I was like, I need a knife, I need pepper spray, I need all this shit. I need to turn on the location on my phone. Like,
nope. I don't. There's no way. Mm-mm. Chris did that all the way across the country.
Yeah.
Before we met.
That's insane. But I think it's different for men.
I think killers kill people.
Oh, they do. But I think men are safer by themselves than women are.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Or an easier target, for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, everybody gets killed by somebody. Like, well, not everyone. I think that's a little dreary, but...
Everybody gets murdered
Everybody gets it. You're all going to be murdered at some point, so...
We're all murderers here. Murderies? I don't know.
Yep. All right. So Gary's first stop was at Henry's bar, where he made the acquaintance of 36-year-old.
What was the accent on that word?
I don't know what I was going to... I don't know. I think I was going to say make, but I meant to say made. And it came out made. The acquaintance of a 36-year-old Margaret Bell. The young-looking beauty was dressed up in tight slacks that looked like they had been put on by a spray gun, quote-unquote.
Wow.
At closing time, she offered Gary a ride home in her Cadillac. Once inside the car, he pulled a long-bladed knife and forced her to drive him out of the vicinity. Before leaving the area, he raped Margaret on the outskirts of Sharp and again in McCracken. At knife point, the terrified girl was forced to drive him to Arkansas, then on to Tennessee, and finally to Kentucky. He raped and sodomized her more times than they stopped for gas and snacks with her credit card. Can you imagine driving that far with some asshole that's just raping you along the way?
No.
That's insane. No. They drove to 3 different states.
No.
And he would just stop and rape her along the way.
I don't know why this story so far is giving me like Monster vibes.
Yeah,
the movie with Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like it's a different gender and like all kinds of stuff, but it's really just
it's weird. And there's not a lot of information. Like there's like a handful of podcasts that have done this. Just a handful.
Probably because there's not a lot of information.
Yeah, there's not a lot of information. But I don't understand why. He, like, killed 5 people.
In 19
days. Like, you would think that would be...
like a big thing.
A big thing.
Yeah.
Like, is it not? That's not a big thing anymore? There's only 5, so... So Margaret never returned to her job. She never returned to her pleasant home in the suburb where she lived with her family. Before the sun had come into complete view on the morning of May 8th, the news bulletin filled the airways and a frantic search for Margaret was on. The county sheriff's department trucked in bloodhounds to provide a comprehensive ground search. So they're really, like, on it, which is nice. Trying. Yeah, even, like, back then, like, they were like, okay, let's do this shit.
Exactly.
In the beginning, police...
shocking for the 70s.
Yeah, but, like, in the beginning, police had been inclined to think that Margaret had run off with a stranger who had picked her up at the bar. There had been vague rumors that Margaret would disappear for days at a time, then suddenly show up giving little or no explanation as to where she was or who she was with. So, like, she did leave for a couple times. I don't know why. Like, who does that? Who just leaves their entire family for... Where do you go? What are you doing?
I imagine you don't understand because when you were, like, a grown-up...
Yeah.
You had a cell phone. But, like, days before cell phones, you know, like, you could just, like, disappear for a few days.
But I'm like, why? What are you doing? You have a family. Like, you just like, I can't just decide to just leave for a couple days. Like, the home would come crashing down. Like, Auntie has no idea what the kids' schedule is, or what time they go to school, or what time I pick them up, or what time they have baseball practice, or tumbling, or, like, cross country. Like, he has none of that information.
Well, so I'm just gonna...
It just really bugs me that people think they can just leave for a couple days. Like, where the fuck are you going?
So I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that, like, maybe the kids weren't in that many events.
Maybe. It just seems like, I don't know, it's like really triggering me.
Maybe it's like a different time.
Yeah.
So, like, they got themselves ready for school. They took
that's
themselves
true.
to school. Like, you know, like, think of how far away your oldest school is. Like, that's walking distance.
It is. It could be.
In the 70s.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, not Avery or Connor.
No,
right?
no.
Like, that's way too far right now.
Right.
But, like...
High school, he can totally walk.
That's a bike.
Yeah.
That's a walking distance. Like,
yeah. For sure.
Especially in the 70s. But, like, not in 2023.
I just don't like it. People, they're just like, yeah, it happens all the time. Like, she just disappears for a couple days. I'm like, where the fuck she go?
Maybe. Some people who aren't super stable.
Yeah.
Who, like, do substances.
Yeah. That's
sometimes just disappear. And if you're living with them, like, you kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of expected.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I just, like, that just gives me anxiety. Like, no. Please don't.
I feel like if I didn't return from your home by 10:15, Chris would be like, excuse me, where are you?
Yeah.
And checking my location.
There's no way. Yeah. There's no way I could just disappear for a couple days.
Absolutely not. I can barely disappear to my bedroom for 30 minutes. Like,
I go to the bathroom and Avery just opens the door and walk in. I'm like, the door's shut. Like, the door is shut. Just leave it shut.
It's not even my kids anymore. Like, they know. Like, if I shut my door, like, that means I want privacy. It's my fucking cat. She sits right behind my legs, in between me and the toilet. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Honey girl, what are you doing? I love you, but get out of here.
My dogs do that too. They come barging in. Like, it's just a small little... They're both staring at me.
These are so rude.
They're like, well, you look at me when I poop in the backyard. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. All right, so...
Okay, so they had been inclined to think that she had just run off with this guy.
How old was she again? Sorry. Did you say?
No,
okay,
I don't know.
Then I didn't miss it.
I think she's in her mid-30s, 40s, that kind of thing. So, police didn't know it then, but the killer kept Margaret's body in her Cadillac for nearly a week before he hid it in a haystack. On the outskirts of Branson, the Cadillac breathed its last breath. It hissed and coughed and stopped dead on the side of the road. Gary stuck his thumb out again and got a ride back to Oklahoma, leaving Margaret's Cadillac to be found by a cruising Missouri state trooper.
I don't know why that gave me such, like, a visceral reaction.
Yes.
The thought of, like, touching and moving, like, a 5-day-old decomposing body, like, really gave me the
And it's been in the trunk, so it's not, like, well preserved or anything.
It really gave me the ick right now.
Yeah, it's really bad. Like, this guy just
Zero fucks.
Zero fucks. Okay.
I hated that.
Yeah.
If you really, like...
I know, I was like, holy shit, this case really sucks. But there's, like, not that much on it. So weird. At this point, the police had no reason to connect these crimes.
Because
there were reports of several attempted abductions by a man in a white Cadillac. A check was made with the National Crime Center in Washington, D.C., with a request for a review of the files for any similar crime or abduction in which a white Cadillac had been used. They received a negative answer. The next stop on Gary's zigzag cross-country sex and murder spree was in Vinita, just off Route 44 between the towns of Claremore and Miami. Not Miami, Florida.
This is Oklahoma.
Miami, Oklahoma. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah. 35-year-old Jayne Hilburn was in her garden on the morning of May 14th when Gary noticed a for sale sign on Jayne's manicured lawn on a peaceful cul-de-sac and approached her. Posing as a potential buyer, he struck up a conversation with her, explaining that he was recently transferred into the area by his company and her house would be a perfect spot for him to settle. Jayne readily agreed to give Gary a tour of her house.
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
Don't do that. Do not ever invite anyone off the street into your house.
Especially a vampire.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why. I was watching a video of like two lawyers debating on if a search warrant would be like welcome enough for a vampire to be like a vampire detective to be able to get into a home. Because like that's the whole lore. Like you have to invite a vampire in. And so they were trying to debate on like if it would be enough for it was really funny.
That's pretty funny.
And it just popped in my head when you said don't invite anyone into your home.
Weird. Okay. So once inside the house, Gary's eight-day nightmare odyssey further unleashed. Jayne became victim number 3. Gary unloaded a savage attack on Jayne. He ripped off her clothes and dragged her into the bedroom where her head was beaten and she was brutally raped. He strangled her with her sweaty, expressive face, and her sweaty, expressive face turned blue. With his victim dead on the floor, Gary rummaged through her house, taking anything of value he could carry.
I don't know why, like, I always think about, like, you know, the moment when it turns from, like, this could be normal to, like, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, I need to get out of this situation. Like, I always think of that.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, just imagine being like, oh, like, oh, maybe this person wants to buy my house.
Right.
And then, like, getting in it and just, like, turning around and seeing, like,
and your
serial killer eyes.
Yeah.
And you're like,
oh, fuck.
I fucked up.
Yeah.
And, like, immediately your brain's like, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? How do I get out of this?
That must have been horrible.
You know,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. That sucks.
I always think, like, I don't know. I've never been in, like, that kind of a situation, you know?
No, I haven't.
But, like, I always think about that, and like I can feel it. Like the closest I've ever got is like being robbed at gunpoint.
Yeah, that's fucking scary enough.
Being like, what do I do here?
Right.
Like, how do I get away from this?
Yeah.
But like, I always think like how sad that-that's like the last thing
that they remember. Yeah.
You know?
That sucks. So he loaded the stolen goods into her 1987 black Camaro and drove down Route 44, passing through Claremore and the tiny town of Catoosa on his way to Tulsa. Excuse me. I was going to say Tulsa. At this point, there was no reason to link any of the crimes. Everything happened in different parts of the country. Police continued to work on the homicides even as they coped with. In each case, they checked out suspects, men suspected in a specific rape, and general suspects, reasonably balanced men who may have been involved in a burglary or car theft. Investigators labored to match suspects with the crimes at hand in their separate communities and to produce information on any one of the 3,000 lawbreakers whose names appeared even remotely as possible suspects in each separate case.
Oh, God.
3,000 people.
That's a needle in a haystack.
That's horrible. Police were hoping that the right man would be seized for the crime. A tipster would call in, an admission would be made, that they would uncover a body, but each case had a favorite suspect, but none of them panned out. Gary's next victim miraculously
Wow, you'll get there.
survived. She was 18. She left her Oakhurst County home on May 15th to go swimming when a man in a black Camaro pulled up to the curb and offered her a ride. She accepted. The bushy-haired driver introduced himself as Gary Edwards and asked her if she had ever thought about a modeling career. She became nervous. When she asked to be let out of the car, Gary pulled a knife and told her to be quiet if she wanted to live. He drove her to Keystone Ramp and ordered her to strip naked.
I feel scary. Familiar to me now.
You think? I don't know. There wasn't a ton that I could find. Yeah, there's not a lot on there.
Maybe I've just heard so many shitty stories that
they all run together.
Sort of, yeah.
They blend together, yeah. On May 20th, only 5 days after the girl escaped her would-be rapist.
How did she escape?
I think he was like getting into the car and like she decided she like made a run for it.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a couple people that get away. So yeah. Which I don't know. Yeah. So, on May 20th, only 5 days after the girl escaped her would-be rapist on Keystone Ramp, Gary picked up a young boy and a girl hitchhiking in the oil field. He told the boy to consider himself lucky when he kicked him out of the car in the middle of nowhere. He warned the 17-year-old girl to cooperate or he would kill her. The last time the boy saw his girlfriend, she was being driven away by an unshaven, bushy-haired man in a black Camaro. When the boy reported the incident, county patrol cars and Oklahoma State Trooper vehicles probed the countryside with its vastly strewn oil wells, even as dusk gave way into darkness. Powerful searchlights from whirlbirds above probed the flatlands, hoping to spot a black Camaro.
So they used helicopters.
So, yeah. In Skiatook, the Camaro became the object of a desperate search in which manhunters feared time was running out for the abducted Hominy resident. Members of the search group were fully aware that the welfare of the abducted teenage girl depended on quick police action. For 2 days, they pressed the massive search. Their search began at sunrise, and when darkness fell, flashlight beams lit up the wilderness that engulfed Skiatook like hundreds of enormous fireflies. So you got to give this credit. Like, they really are getting on these things, like, right away.
Yeah.
I think they're now starting to connect these things together, but they weren't at first because they all happened in different states.
Well, and like having the boy be able to go to the police too, like it was this person.
Yeah,
it looked
this
like
what it looked like in this car
during the crime, like while the crime is still occurring. I think is probably
it's huge.
Helpful.
Yeah. So while this was going on, the hostage was driven to a secluded spot on Osage County oil property and ordered to take off her bra and panties. He raped her repeatedly and forced her to give him oral sex at knife point, which is absolutely disgusting.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Ugh, I can't.
Bite that shit off.
Seriously. When he fell asleep, she managed to flee the car and escaped under the canopy of darkness. She made it to the highway and flagged down a trucker. The trucker quickly covered her and with a blanket and took her to the sheriff's office in the heart of the city. Since the girl had escaped, Gary had become well aware that the Camaro would be on the hot sheet in Oklahoma and might possibly be traced back to Jayne Hilburn, the strangled Veneta resident. He knew that every police officer in Oklahoma would be clamoring to bring him in, so he left the Camaro in the oil field and went looking for fresh wheels. The tag on the Camaro had been switched previously. He had swiped it from a car parked in Oconomowoc County near US 75 and SH 16. Frustrated and in a nasty mood, Gary was walking down 4th Street at the corner of Peoria on May 23, 1984, the day after the Camaro was found, impounded, and examined for fingerprints. He noticed a stranded woman looking under the hood of her Dodge Dart. He offered to help her and immediately recognized that her car was out of gas. When he returned with a can of gas, the two struck up a friendly conversation. The woman explained in a matter-of-fact question and answer discussion that her name was Janet Jewell and she lived in Beggs. She was in Tulsa searching for a job. A divorcee, she had 3 children who were being watched by her boyfriend at his apartment in Tulsa while she was job hunting.
Oh.
Janet was a pretty 32-year-old blonde who was bubbling over with energy. She was planning to be married in August and was hoping to find work before then. Once the gas was in her car, Gary told Janet to start her up. As she did so, he managed to slide beside her in the driver's seat. Suddenly, Gary pulled a long-bladed knife and kidnapped her in the broad daylight in the downtown Tulsa.
Jesus.
Like, seriously, just in the middle of the day.
That is so ballsy.
Extremely. Like, I'm sure it was crowded. I don't know about...
Wow.
I'm sure it's crowded.
I don't think Tulsa has that many people.
Well, I'm sure someone would have spotted that. Like, it would have been busy enough to see, like, holy shit, there's someone being kidnapped.
But I also can understand, like, if they just saw her get in a car and get in a car.
They
and,
didn't see the knife.
A knife got pulled underneath the view of the window.
That's
like,
true.
You would think nothing's wrong.
That's true, yeah.
Especially if she was being friendly with him. You know,
yeah, they were having a conversation.
Hey, get away from me.
Right.
Don't talk to me.
Yeah, and he was helping her out. He put gas in her car, so she had her, Okay.
Like, so, I can see.
Yeah, that's true.
That not causing red flags.
Yeah.
You know?
That does make sense. In a later confession, Gary said he drove Janet through Bristow to SH-16. They stopped at a Get and Go where he forced her to purchase potato chips and drinks with what little money she had. Leaving there with Janet at the wheel, they drove over by Slick where he tied her hands with a coax cord and raped her several times. They were both asleep when an oil plumber happened by and told them they would have to leave the area because it was private property. The oil plumber later told the police that they were both naked and passed out. He couldn't see that her hands were tied behind her back because the man was on top of her. They left Slick, and the terrified woman was forced to drive to several rural locations in Creek and Ocmulgee County, where Gary was suddenly gripped by a fear of compulsion to have sex with her. His perverse, less satisfied, he tied her hands to the steering wheel, and they both fell asleep. At dawn, Gary repeatedly raped and sodomized her. Reasoning that her attacker might want to rape her again, Janet pleaded, "I'll do whatever you want, only don't kill me for the sake of my 3 children." He then killed her.
I knew it was coming, but I hated it.
Such an asshole. Gary took a piece of the cord and wrapped it around her neck, cutting off her air supply. He drove his 4th victim down the highway and exited at a dirt road that led to a small, trickling Ocmulgee County creek 1.8 miles east of Beggs.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're
but
fine.
Does he say that his motive is murder, or is
I think his motive is sexual assault, but then he ends up killing. I think he enjoys killing them as well, but I think the initial thing, because he let the boyfriend go and took the girlfriend, I think it's sexual assault.
Yeah, where he easily could have killed the boyfriend.
Right. And then but he let her, So I think that's what it is, but I think he likes killing too, so.
How many victims are you on?
I don't know.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. He tossed Janet's limp body into the creek, then ate the remainder of the potato chips as he watched her body sink into the watery grave. After Janet went missing for a few days, the rationale was that she had been intercepted on her way home from job hunting. It was obvious that she was in captive of foul play and that her abductor had an excellent head start on his pursuers. Police had to wrestle with the possibility that Janet Jewell was already dead, which she was, because I don't think the boyfriend called for a couple days the police to report her missing.
Why?
I don't know. I couldn't find much information, but it took a couple days for her to be reported.
I wonder if maybe sometimes she went missing.
Maybe, but it didn't say anything about that. But if she was out looking for a job and 3 kids were at her boyfriend's house, don't you think she would have come home at night after she was job hunting? If I was the boyfriend, I'd be like, "Okay, where's your mom?" What the fuck?
You little heathens.
Yeah.
Need to go to bed.
Like, this is not my problem.
Yeah.
With every law enforcement agency in Oklahoma looking for Janet's Dodge, Gary evaded pursuit by steering clear of police blockades. On May 20th,
How?
I don't
How
know,
does
because
he know where
he
they
took
set
back
up?
roads. Like, he didn't stay on the main roads. He was careful on where to go. I don't know.
How the fuck? Also, how the fuck do you navigate without
I don't
GPS?
know. I don't exactly.
A paper map?
Well, I think people, like, knew where they were going. Because they didn't have, like, a lot. There wasn't a shit ton going on. Like, they stayed in their own little town. And so you know, like, all the different back ways to go.
I mean, sure. But, like...
I don't know.
A paper map.
Right. Yeah.
Could you imagine having a paper map again?
I had to, like, tell my mom how to go with the Thomas Guide.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how to read this Thomas Guide. I would, like, flip it around, trying to figure out, like, what the...
So I worked at Papa John's, delivering pizzas, like, before GPS was really readily available for everybody. Like, it definitely wasn't on your phones yet. Like,
Right.
Google Maps didn't exist. And we had, like, our delivery areas, they would give us, like, a map book, a paper map book.
Yeah, no.
If someone handed me a paper map book today and was like, Janelle,
Nope.
you're 18 and hungover and you need to figure out how to deliver this pizza with a paper map book, I would be like, I think I'm just going to go back home and go to sleep. Like, there is no way.
No.
There's no way I could do it now.
Nope.
I can barely get places with GPS that screams directions at me.
I put GPS every time that we're going to their practice or whatever, like... Every time. And Preston's like, you don't know how to get there yet? I'm like, I know how to get there. I just don't know how to get there if, like, there was an accident on the freeway. I don't know how to maneuver around that. Like, I just, like, so...
I do the same thing when I take Bo to wrestling.
Like, I just don't remember. It just tells me what to do, and then I have no idea where I am, and I'm like, oh.
We're here.
We're here.
I didn't even have to think.
I didn't think at all.
My car drives itself.
Fucking goes, yeah. So
With,
does
like,
mine, yeah.
Cruise control.
Yep.
Like, wow, I barely
don't have to do shit.
Anything. I don't have to steer. I don't have to.
That's so scary.
Put my foot on the gas or the brake.
That's really frightening. I don't like that. I'm not prepared for that yet. That kind of technology.
Yeah, I have a hard time with the control thing.
Yeah.
Like.
No. Right.
Like, you're letting it get too close. I know I set 1 car length, but I feel like you're a half car length. And you're making me nervous. Anyways.
Okay. On March 24th, he parked the Dodge in a parking lot of Tulsa's...
Do you mean March?
May. On May 24th, he parked the Dodge in a parking lot of Tulsa's Town West Center shopping center. He sat for hours looking for the right victim to emerge from the grocery store. It may have been one of those supreme ironies of history that cost KRAV radio news reporter Valerie Shaw-Hartzell her life. One of Tulsa's favorite newscasters, she had already done her shopping for the week but had forgotten diapers for her baby. Had she not forgotten to add diapers to her grocery list, she might be alive today. It was just that, an innocent, ill-fated error that cost her her life. Emerging from the grocery store with diapers in her hand, Valerie was completely unaware that she was being watched by a brutal psychopath. She was alone and vulnerable, so Gary decided on her as his 5th victim. Valerie saw him as she approached her pickup truck, but was unconcerned for her safety because he was fumbling with keys to unlock the trunk of his own car. When she unlocked the door of her pickup and opened it, she felt a knife in her back.
You know, this is why people are fucking afraid to load their groceries while their kid sits in a cart.
Yeah.
Like, these are the reasons.
Yeah.
And it's such a, like, tiny chance.
Yep.
But
it fucking happens.
Wow.
Yep. He warned her not to make a sound or she would never see her baby again. He forced her into the vehicle and slipped in beside her. They drove right by 2 Tulsa parole cars parked directly opposite from where she was abducted. How can you even believe that? When Valerie failed to return home with the diapers, police were notified and the hunt was on. Police hoped by showing her face on television that it would lead to a speedy conclusion, but they were wrong. The family photograph of Valerie resulted in several phone calls from people who saw her at 2 different drive-up banks in the company of a gruffy-looking man. It looked as though she was trying to cash a personal check. Later inquiries proved that she was unsuccessful in her first attempt to withdraw $500. At the second bank, she withdrew $500 and then vanished. The road was slick from a downpour of rain, so they stayed overnight on a rural road on the outskirts of Kellyville off Route 11. About 100 feet off the road, there in the pitch darkness, with the rain beating down on Valerie's pickup, he raped and sodomized her. The following morning, under a charcoal gray sky, he laid her in the back of the pickup and raped her twice more while she begged to be taken home to her children. After an exhausting night, he forced her to write a $650 check on her account. Valerie drove Gary to a Tulsa drive-through bank in an attempt to cash the check. The first teller refused to cash the check because it was above the drive-through limit of $500. Undeterred, Gary compelled her to drive to another bank where the $650 check was accepted. Now, $650 richer, Valerie and Gary drove to Claremore. They arrived there on May 25th. Officers who swept over the area quizzing people at Tulsa's Town West Shopping Center learned that there had been several sightings of a man who had abandoned his car in the shopping center and left with a woman in a tan pickup. 2 witnesses said that the woman appeared to be in an emotional state. One witness said they appeared to be headed east in the direction of Chandler's Mills. The search was concentrated in that county in addition to Newport, with teams of sheriffs, deputies, and detectives staked out in various homes of Valerie's relatives in case they received a ransom call from her abductor.
So if people saw, why didn't they
say anything? Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at someone and they look like they're in distress. I mean, that could be they could have just gotten in a fight like a couple, if they didn't see the weapon or anything, I could see. If it just looks like some lady's in distress, fuck, I look like that half the time that we're running errands.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just disheveled and you're not thinking. Sometimes you're running, you got in a fight with your spouse. It could mean anything. I don't know. So that sucks. But in a later confession, Gary said he heard sounds of the intensifying search. He had to act fast to stay 1 jump ahead of his pursuers. The sun poked through the clouds just in time to spotlight Valerie's last seconds on Earth. He cut strips of a towel into stringy pieces and closed it around on her throat. Valerie realized his intent, and before the last pull of the thong, she reminded him that she had 3 children and for God's sake to think of them. But Gary would not allow himself to be preoccupied by empathy. He tossed his garrote about her skinny neck and choked her off, a final gurgling plea for mercy. As darkness descended, Gary decided to go on a drinking spree. Still driving Valerie's pickup truck, he frequented bars from Claremont to Tulsa. The more he drank, the more he became a time bomb of lust and ready to murder. Unfortunately for Gary, he drove the pickup to Vinita, the area of Jayne Hilburn's abduction and murder. He kidnapped a young woman and held her hostage for a couple of days, raping her at will. Gary later said the girl was nice to him even after he sodomized and raped her. So he drove her back to her own neighborhood on May 27th, kissed her goodbye, and set her free.
Wow. She got lucky.
She did. After being released by Gary, the girl telephoned the police and reported the incident. The sleuths realized the gravity of the situation when the description of the rapist pickup truck matched the description of the missing radio newscaster's vehicle. Police had already issued local, state, and national bulletins putting a stop on Valerie Shaw-Hartzell's pickup and its occupants. Gary drove down Route 50 through Lost Mountain until he got to Heavener. There he met a fellow in a bar who was willing to trade him a Western-style .22 caliber handgun for the pickup. He hitchhiked a
Who the fuck is trading a gun for a pickup?
Right? I thought that too. I was like,
like, why would this man be like, no, that seems like a reasonable trade?
I need a car. Here. I just don't, yeah.
What?
He hitchhiked a ride to Van Buren, Arkansas, where he used the gun to hold up a grocery clerk. But the female clerk panicked and ran out of the door screaming. Gary ran the other way empty-handed. He went back to the motel where he was registered under the name of Dana Boy Ray. I don't know where he came up with that one.
Okay.
Instead of going to his room, he forced 2 employees into the female's car and told her to drive away. Away from the motel, he made her stop so that he could drive. Seizing an opportunity that may have saved their lives, both the male and female fled as Gary was sliding behind the wheel.
Good job.
Yeah. Gary drove the car into a field and abandoned it. He walked across the field to a mobile home. No one was home, so he broke in. 2 women came home unexpectedly and caught him burglarizing the place. At gunpoint, he forced them outside and into their car. The younger woman pleaded not to go because she was 5 months pregnant. Oh. He promised not to harm them if they behaved themselves. They stopped at a restaurant near Claremore because they were all hungry. None of them had any money, so he pawned the gun.
I have so many questions about the thought processes and like...
Yeah. I guess he's hungry. Fuck. After lunch...
I'm still so hung up on who's trading a gun for a car.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like...
The 80s, man.
Sir, the 70s,
The 70s,
right?
yeah.
Sir, you're getting a bad deal. You're getting a car that is clearly involved in some shady shit that someone's just trying to get rid of. Like... Oh my god.
Okay. After lunch, Gary gave the woman some little money he had.
Words.
After lunch, Gary gave the woman what little money he had and dropped them off in Tulsa. They promised to give him a 1-hour head start before calling the police. Gary spared their lives. He kissed us on the cheek and said goodbye, the woman said.
What the fuck?
It's all over the place.
What the fuck?
Yeah. A break in the case came on May 28th when agents of the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation announced at a press conference that fingerprints lifted by expert technicians recovered from Jayne Hilburn's abandoned Camaro belonged to ex-con named Gary Allen Walker. With further probing, a clearer picture emerged of the individual. Prior to setting out on his crime spree, Gary managed to run up a record of convictions over a span of 15 years. He was imprisoned for housebreaking, carjacking, narcotics abuse, and carrying a concealed weapon. He hadn't spent a full year away from confinement since he was the age of 17. So he was in and out of jail and psychiatric hospitals and never spent more than a year out of jail for years. Like he would go to jail and then get out and
like
then
never a felony or like...
I guess not back then.
Did they not have like 3 strike rules? Like...
That was Bill Clinton, I think.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't have any of that.
Was a baby there?
Yeah. It hasn't been that way for like, it wasn't that way when I was born and being raised. That just happened.
Like in the 90s?
And, yeah, I think so. So, wow. Yeah. While housed in...
How are you such a fucking just garbage
piece of shit? Yeah, he didn't have a great childhood either. So. But still, lots of people don't. While housed in the Oklahoma State prison system between 1977 and 1980, Walker was detained at the state hospital at Vinita for the mentally unbalanced on 3 separate occasions. His life was a tanglement of therapy, stimulants, and electric shock treatments. Like, why? Why did they think electric shock treatments would do something? That is insane to me. What the fuck?
What the science told them.
Seriously, though? I mean, come on.
I did see there's new treatment for, like, resistant treatment, like, medication-resistant depression.
Oh, really?
It's supposed to be really helpful.
Oh.
It's like a brain something.
Huh.
It's like electroshock, but 2023 version. And it's like actually helpful.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
All right. I'll look into that. So, imprisoned in the 1984 on charges of prison escape and attacking a fellow inmate, he spent the final 6 months of his prison term at the Federal Medical Facility in Springfield, Missouri. A psychiatric report diagnosed him as being paranoid and schizophrenic, a danger to society. Regardless, he was paroled. This is the man police now suspected of a string of murders and rapes across the state. On May 29th, prison mugshots of Gary were shown to the surviving victims from Oakhurst, Veneta, and Skeetuk. It was him, they said. Mm-hmm. On May 30th, 2 young girls were abducted in Van Buren, Arkansas, an area of friendly people where murders were not a thing. They were watching television when Gary, wielding a knife, crashed through the door and forced them outside and into their car. He told the girl at the wheel to find a deserted road, that he intended to have sex with them both. When she stopped the car, they broke loose and flagged down a passing farmer. Gary floorboarded the car and vanished in a cloud of dust. Taken to police headquarters, the girls identified their abductor as Gary Allen Walker from a photo display. The streets were quiet in Van Buren when Gary crashed through the front door of another home, threatening to kill the occupants if they didn't hand over the keys to their car.
Is he on drugs?
No, nothing ever mentioned drugs. Ever. Like, I didn't see anything. Like, he used to drink.
On a fucking rampage,
but there was no mention of drugs, just alcohol. Yeah, well, this is a 19-day spree. Yeah, so insane. At police headquarters, they identified the car thief as Gary from the mugshots. Shortly after that, in Tulsa, investigators traced Gary to a rundown mobile home, and he was captured as he was drinking a beer with 2 neighborhood men.
Hey.
At police headquarters, he directed investigators to the bodies of the missing victims. Janet Jewell's skeletized corpse was unearthed near Beggs. Valerie Shaw-Hartzell's decomposing corpse was uncovered near Claremore. Margaret Bell's disturbingly rotted cadaver was found in an abandoned barn beneath a haystack near Princeton, Kentucky. On November 14th, 1984, a jury convicted Gary of killing Broken Arrow area resident Eddie Cash. That was the first guy that he killed. The same jury sentenced him to die. Tulsa County Sheriff Stanley Glanz, who also attended the execution, said Walker, quote, admitted to killing all 5 people on the Saturday evening he was arrested. He remembered a sleep-deprived Walker being almost relieved to talk about the crimes. The chief detective for the Tulsa Police Department at the time said that on the day of Walker's arrest, Walker led the officer to Shaw-Hartzell's and Jewell's bodies. Aside from the death penalty, Walker ultimately received 5 life terms and 530 years in prison for the other crimes he committed in 1984. The death sentence Walker received on June 1st, 1985 for the strangulation death of Shaw-Hartzell was overturned on an appeal. Walker pleaded guilty in a subsequent retrial and received life without parole and 500 years for kidnapping. At 12:20 a.m. Thursday, January 13th, 2000, 4 minutes after receiving an injection of fatal chemicals, Gary died at McAllister Prison. His parting words to his victim relatives were, "I'm sorry for what I've done. I hope when I go, the hate you have, and it's natural that you hate me, that you will let it go with me." At the pronouncement of his death, clapping came from the chamber.
Don't tell me to do anything.
Right. The chamber family members, clapping came from the chamber where the family members of his victims witnessed his demise. They said over 30 family members of all the victims had shown up. There was no room to watch. Like, they had to stand on the outsides and watch because so many people showed up to see that asshole die. Wow. That there wasn't enough room in the place.
Jesus.
Yeah. 19 days. It was reported that both his parents were alcoholics. I think his mom may have sexually abused him. when he was younger. I think his dad was an asshole and beat all his kids. So, but I mean, it wasn't like, I mean, that sucked, and that's horrible. But it, like, he was an alcoholic who used to yell at his kids. Like, it wasn't, well, the mom thing is really bad. But, I mean, it's not like some of these other people that have gone through, like, torture in their lives and then they do the same thing. Like, he had a shitty upbringing, but lots of people do.
Did he say, like, what his motive was? Or, like, did he never...
Nope.
Said the reason? Like...
Nope.
How do you commit, like, mostly petty crimes, right? Mm-hmm. And then just, like, escalate so fast and so far?
I don't know if he, like, went into some sort of...
Like, psychosis
because this was over only 19 days.
Yeah.
And he was just like, bam, 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 bam.
And the detective being like, he almost seemed relieved.
Yeah.
To be, like, talking about it and, like,
to have it over. Yeah.
I think that's why I asked, like, maybe he was on drugs?
Maybe, but it did not say, like, it talked about him being an alcoholic, but not a drug user. Yeah. And it took him 4 minutes to die.
That seems like a long time.
Doesn't that seem like, I mean, like, not that he didn't deserve it, but, like, 4 minutes? I don't know, like, from when they gave him the medication to when he actually died. It took 4 minutes.
Well, isn't that why, like, a lot of people don't do the death penalty now?
I guess, but, like, yeah, it does seem like a long time.
It kind of seems like...
Like, when you put your dog to sleep, it's right away. It's instant.
It's pretty...
4 minutes, though? I mean, I'm kind of glad that it was. Like, fuck him. Fuck him. He deserves it. I'm not always pro-death penalty because, God, you really need to make sure you got the right person. But this guy was the right person. And he fucking deserved to suffer for 4 fucking minutes out of his life.
I almost feel like it's worse to, like, live in prison forever.
Yeah, no, I would be like, just give me the death, like, I'm done.
Also, do you feel like, I don't, maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but do you feel like when they do, like, 17 life sentences and 550 years, like, that just seems like really, like, almost cheapening the punishment because it's so grandiose. Like,
yeah,
like, sure, I get that you're trying to, like, give justice for every victim, but, like, it seems like, like, the first life sentence is the life sentence that matters, and all the other ones are just fucking performative.
Right.
Right? But this could be an unpopular opinion. But
sometimes they give a life sentence and then they get a retrial and then it's like 20 years or something. So I think by adding like another life sentence plus 500 years, they're like, yeah, you're not getting out. Sorry. Even if we did a retrial, you still have the other 2 life sentences plus 500 years.
But if you did a retrial or a mistrial and you're looking at all the charges, right? Like, is there a chance that it would retry for everything? Like,
I don't know.
I just wonder what the thought like, is it to give the victims justice? Maybe. Is it to, like, what is the reasoning behind, like,
well, and because
I think it cheapens it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It does. I could see that. But I also see how, like, Eddie got his, his victory, like, well, his justice because he was given a life sentence. But the other 4 people, like, one of them was overturned. And then the other 3 people were like, okay, well, we'll give you another life sentence. But, like, so, like, they didn't get their life sentence for their family member. Only Eddie did, if you look at it kind of like that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, like, why wouldn't you give a life sentence for X, Y, and Z victims so their families feel like they got a life sentence as well?
But, like,
no.
I mean, we all know that people aren't cats, right? Like,
I know.
There's no 9 lives. Like,
yeah. I just think it's like the judge is saying, like, this is a
like, it
fuck
just feels
you.
Really, like, it just feels, I don't know. To me, it just feels like it, like, cheapens the whole...
I get it. Yeah, I could see both ways. But then I could see, like, if, like, my kids died with other kids and they tried the other kid's funeral first and, like, they got life and I didn't get anything for my kids dying, like, that would kind of piss me off. They're like, oh, yeah, he's in jail, but we're not, like, you're not represented in any way. Like, I don't know. No?
I don't think that that's something I would care about. As
Yeah,
long as
probably
the
not
person
once
who
you're
did it
yeah.
was like in jail forever.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I'm
true.
not sure I would give a shit if they like had him serve an additional life sentence. And sometimes they'll be like, you have 7 life sentences served concurrently.
Yeah.
What's the point? Like,
Yeah. No, that's pretty bad.
and I'm genuinely curious. Like, this is a genuine curiosity. Like,
Yeah,
I just like don't understand like what the point of that
I'm
is.
sure there's some law. I don't know.
Is it just for the victims?
I don't know.
Or could they appeal, like, maybe they can appeal each charge?
That's what I'm saying. Like, so
that has to be.
the judge is
making
sure
that I don't understand.
Yeah,
because
that's what I'm
like
thinking. No,
but like,
we're not lawyers, but I would think that there's some reason, because then they're like, nope, you got to get to another level. Nope, you got to get 500 more years. Like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, like you have to appeal each charge and each sentence
and each year. Like, that'd be a lot.
Yeah. Did he appeal them a lot? Did it say? Or
no, I don't think so.
It didn't say.
No. Mm-mm.
Sorry. I forgot. There was dust on it.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at
The Murder Mamas,
Facebook,
The M Mamas,
Twitter,
The Murder Mamas,
email,
themurdermamas@gmail.com.
And if you like us and are happy with our content, please leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We would appreciate it. Bye.